Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Niko.
I'm Eric.
And today I'm joined by Eric. Eric's a good friend. He's an Eastern medicine practitioner and he has lots of good stuff to say. We just had a gathering, a communal gathering, and it's the tail end of it. Everyone's left. Eric and I are all that remains. And how was it last night?
It's good. I liked it. Yeah, I'm not really great at descriptions, but I guess you could say it was magical. Sure.
What do you typically mean by magic?
Mildly psychedelic.
Yeah, it was mildly psychedelic. We also used some psychedelics, some mild psychedelics as well, some mushroom tea, and what else? Some hape, some cannabis, and what else? Did you use anything else?
No, I just had the mushrooms.
I also had some beer and alcohol, and I don't feel 100%, if the task was mathematics or accounting, if I had to get my affairs in order. Today wouldn't be the day in terms of brain fog. And yet, there is a relaxation and a gratitude for being able to spend time with people. And what did we even do last night? Played charades.
Oh yeah, played charades. That was like the big thing. We ate dinner. It was pretty good. Sat around there, talked. Mostly dinner and charades were the big events. Thought about playing Catan.
Which we ended up playing today.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, there's a board game called Settlers of Catan. And highly intoxicating game in terms of taking attention. We've played a lot lately. We should describe what the game is. You want to try? It's involved. It's a large, involved, detailed description. And if you know, you know. And if you don't, this might not be the place to learn.
Yeah, I mean, let's say a short description of it is a board game with a map and a hexagon all shape. You build towns. You start off with 2, and you have to gather resources, which you do upon dice rolls. If the roll matches the number of the places around where you built, then you get one of that resource, and then you just try to build specific things in order to gain victory points and win.
Yeah, I feel like we just discouraged at least 10, 15,000 people from ever playing.
Well, maybe that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, keep the community tight. Those who want to play can come through, and those who don't. And actually, that's kind of what we were talking about right before this podcast. We're talking about building relationships with people and friendships, and relationships might be what it's all about when it's all said and done. So it tends to be a topic of conversation. And what I'd said in the conversation was, lately I've been creating invitations or making efforts to connect people or to host people for coming over. And a large part of this process is just being rejected and just putting the invitation out there. And most people respond now, but sometimes no responses, or sometimes confirmations, and then the day of things change, and just being understanding of that. Not too harsh on people for changing their mind, not taking it personally. And consistency of creating these opportunities for people to gather. Is that more or less? That's what I said. I don't remember what you said about that.
I mean, yeah, that sounds good. All of that. I actually was thinking about that the other day and talking about it, about how people can respond or not just at certain times, and that's more like if they're it's not really as much about you. It's where they're vibing at. Like where when they want to meet you, they will, and sometimes they can't. And sometimes it's because they're busy. Sometimes they just get like they pick up, they look at their phone, and then they just like start like, what am I gonna respond? And they just put it down and forget altogether. Like that's happened with me a lot over time. I've learned that people sometimes just are too busy with their own stuff, and they don't even necessarily want to reject anything. It's just that they're a little too self-absorbed or don't have their own space in themselves to meet someone else there.
Yeah, when I'm too caught up in like myself, it is definitely harder to be there for, maybe even possible to be there for others as they may want or need, I guess. But it's tough when you practice. You like, I'll have like a virtue, for example, like doing what I say, I'll do, like, and I'll be rigid with myself on that. Like, I'll really try to only say what I mean, and I'll really do the things I say. And if I fail, like there might even be guilt, or I might like punish myself in a mental like way for even a second or maybe even longer. But giving people the opposite treatment and like allowing them to not feel any guilt or any shame, so that the next time an invitation is available, they're more likely to accept it, or if the opportunity is still there. That's been kind of tough, is like, even though I am hurt, not letting them know about it, or I don't know, like, cause what do you like? Oh, dude, what you said yesterday, or was it this morning? Like, strong boundaries equals strong relationships.
I mean, the stronger the boundaries that you have set, the stronger the relationship you can make, because like you have better integrity in that. Like having stronger boundaries means you have greater integrity, which means you can hold more good things inside of you. What I also said was that boundaries aren't for keeping people out, but for keeping the good things in. So that kind of fits in together, how stronger boundaries can keep more good things in.
Yeah, I love that one. And a boundary can be like a boundary with myself, to not create expectations for others.
Hmm.
Is that too broad? Is that too black and white? Like, to not create expectation? Because how do you create boundaries without expectations of others?
Well, I mean, I think that's more of an expectation for what you want to accept into your life. And like, you could just, like, I don't know, accept people as they are, but interact with them less if they cross the boundaries, and then if they cross too many boundaries, you just cut them out or not hang out with them for a while, like see when they change, if they change, that kind of thing.
The boundary stays moving.
Yeah.
Because like, it's okay this time, and then the next time, not okay, boundary.
Well, I'd say you want to have that, you want to make that decision, like as soon as you feel uncomfortable, you want to think about where you want to set that boundary. It's really the thing. And then, like, there's that whole thing where you can just avoid someone if you need to. Like, if it's uncomfortable and you're not really sure where to figure it out, you could just say, hey, like, I guess you could say that you're not comfortable with it, or you could just stop talking to them for a while, like whatever feels more natural, really.
Avoidance has been something I used a lot. I feel like recently I'm now either pendulum swinging back, or rebounding back, where as things come up, I try to face them. And that might include, so like this negative thought pattern of someone who let me down, who I perceive they let me down, letting them know. And I'm trying that out now. But avoidance feels like the wrong word, because avoidance is like, reminds me of flinching, and flinching is kind of when injuries happen.
I don't necessarily always think of it as avoidance. Sometimes I think of it as more like deflecting, like you just like not avoiding it altogether, but you're just kind of pushing it down to later. And I think that's really a thing you do when you don't have the capacity to face it. Like, I think we only have a certain capacity to face like a certain amount of things. There's all sorts of flaws that we have to face, but like we only have a certain amount of energy to fix the ones that are outstanding at the moment.
Oh yeah, you have to be ready to a readiness. Maybe I'm just approaching a readiness to face these things at this particular time, and now I'm able to kind of face certain. Yeah, that's a good point. Like going at your own timeline, and yeah, I have this series called "Things I Wish I Knew Before 30," but that almost counteracts what we just said. It's like it's kind of trying to teach people lessons before they may even. Well, they can only accept what I'm trying to say if they are at that state of readiness.
Exactly.
And actually, that's what one of them is about the path to hell being paved with good intentions. And like you can't rush in, like taking away someone's lesson. You can do that by over helping or sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing that I've heard from a teacher is that even if you do that, they'll just, like, if you take someone's like bad situation away, but then they had to learn something from it, they'll just create it again in a different way. Like, you'll just end up pouring yourself out if you keep trying to do it.
It persists until, what's that? Is there like I feel like there's a little phrase, and I love these phrases. Not resist, what you resist persists.
Yeah.
Oh yeah?
What you
resist, does that apply?
What you resist persists. Yeah, pretty much that's it. You resist it until you're ready for the lesson, and then it can stop showing up in your life after that, or you won't be triggered. You'll just let it flow through at that point, or you'll have a more skilled response to it, and then, yeah, you let it go.
I think what we were talking about with law of attraction. I don't know if I want to kind of dive into that because there's just so much packed into that concept and topic. But I think we made it really concise. We got it down to like a really concise definition that might be worth sharing. Yeah,
I recall you were saying you need like clarity of intention, and then you decide what you want. That was like one part of it. And then you just sort of act toward that direction, have gratitude for what you have of that already. Like, because having gratitude opens you up energetically to what you're feeling gratitude towards. So you just want to, like, say you want love, you feel gratitude for the love you already have in your life, the love you had before, the love you have for yourself, all that kind of stuff, like the love you have for your body for continuing to work as well as it does. And you just build on that. It's like a muscle, and it just gets easier and easier over time.
Yeah. It was like clear intent. Knowing what you want is a huge thing. And then being able to articulate what you want is another huge thing. And those seem to be like initial phases, and they're all introspective. Yeah. And then like the practical stuff seems to be gratitude as if you already have all the things that, gratitude as if you have what you're seeking. Mm-hmm. And plus consistency is always the kicker. So it's like those three things seem to be like an equation to it.
Yeah, and then sort of letting go and letting things come to you in forms other than you might have expected them is one.
Yeah, you said the gratitude part is actually what creates space. So like knowing what I want and saying what I want is like the intense like effort of like almost grasping part, and then the gratitude as if I already have it is the letting go. And it's like the grasping plus the letting go seems to create an environment for manifestation.
Yeah, it's the yang and the yin.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess I'd like to talk a little bit Chinese medicine, but what we said, I don't know, what comes to mind is the liver response. We correlated yesterday in the group setting how the liver is associated with anger, but also eyes are, because when you get jaundice, your eyes can turn yellow, which is an indicator of liver failure-ish type of thing. So there's a correlation there. So with Sananga, which is like rainforest medicine, basically you fill up a little cup, a very small cup the size of your eye, and then you pour it in your eye and you wash your eye with this fluid, or you can put drops in, and it's a very intense sting, like a super intense stinging. We didn't work with this last night, but I've worked with it before, and it supposedly clears you of anger, and we correlated the jaundice, being seen in the eyes, the cleansing of the eyes, and the dissipation of anger. Is there anything like that, like any other correlations that you can add that are coming to mind? Or
I mean, that's all that seems relevant there. There's other things I could say, but it all seems like very tangential at best.
That's okay. Well, what about deer antler fur? Do you believe in that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a medicine, a Chinese medicine.
What's it do?
It depends on how old the antler. Oh, yeah. Well, if it's the velvet, it'll be the young fur or the young antler. So,
young buck.
So that's more of a young tonic, like male virility. Well, it's not necessarily male, but it's associated with male, like the activeness, explosiveness, that kind of thing. So it's definitely a young tonic, and it's also just like a general, like, I think probably for chi and blood kind of thing. So like substance and yourself, restorative kind of thing, and better, good for energy and potency, sexual potency probably.
For men, and is the yang energy in women also their sexual potency?
Yeah.
So yeah, deer antler. It's not. There's a supplement that was taken by like Ray Lewis when he got a tricep injury before his Super Bowl. It was deer antler, and it's supposedly like a growth hormone and testosterone booster. And that's how it's been like sold in the fitness industry. So for it to be used, but how do you harvest it? You shoot the buck, and then it still has fur on its antlers, so you scrape that into a collection vessel?
That might be a way to do it. The way that I'm aware that they do it, which is probably, well, it's kind of cruel, is they have farm-raised animals, and then they just like tie it off when it's new, and it's like they cut it off.
Oh, so the deer survives.
Yeah.
And they produce different antlers every year.
Yeah.
So one deer can be many antlers as opposed to just killing it.
Yeah, and then the more humane way they do it, sometimes they'll just collect the shed antlers, and then that's less of a yang tonic, and that's more of a like balanced kind of thing.
That's definitely what I'm trying to manifest. I'll try to manifest a young. But the thing is, they don't fall off until the fuzz is gone, because all the antlers I find are fuzzless, and I found a couple antlers.
Yeah.
So that would be tough. I mean, you'd have to find it like right when it falls off, or by the time it falls off, has it already lost its fuzz?
I don't think. I think the antlers that I'm thinking of don't have the fuzz on them, and they still use them, if I'm not mistaken.
Are there any medicines you're working with right now? Chinese medicine style?
Not really. Rocks would be the closest thing, but that's tangential, I would say.
Well, we could talk about rocks. I'm kind of a skeptic, so it might be a good or an interesting conversation for a viewer. I can see how things looking a certain way can make you feel a certain way. But in terms of like it producing its own inside out vibration, for that to be palatable enough to alter like the vibrations in me, it just seems hard. Like, why would that rock alter me more than the table or the couch or like the fireplace?
Because it has a more crystalline structure, so that has like kind of a clear flow through it. Like they use quartz crystals for like powering a clock. Like that's energy right there.
Does it power the clock?
I'm pretty sure that
it's not the battery.
Are you sure? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I know that like squeezing quartz does produce a charge though.
Wait, I'm not sure because before batteries there were like pocket watches, right? Wait, how old are watches? And did they start with the battery? No, they were winding.
Yeah.
So what? You wind it every day, or how long often did you have to wind it?
Beats me.
So it was powered by your manpower.
Mm-hmm.
So the quartz crystal, to answer that question, still didn't power it. It was just a part of it for the reason unknown.
Right, but I imagine that quartz should be able to be used as a battery because I've definitely heard that like squeezing a crystal will produce a piezoelectric charge. But anyway, so that's that, and the clarity of the structure is kind of the idea behind it having its own magnetic field. Plus, I mean, stones are like in the earth a lot longer than wood, for example. So if it had more sort of a strength to it, I think that would make sense given that it's been like developing for hundreds, thousands of years, where a tree won't be more than like 100 years old probably most of the time.
Here's where I feel like compromising is I don't think a stone itself produces any significant change of frequency, but if you use it, it could direct or channel your own energy and ability to project and grow and like expand. It could do that. And then going off what you said, it being really old, if objects have memory, which is postulated by Rupert Sheldrake, then maybe I could compromise and say you might be able to feel into the memory of that might affect how you're able to channel your own energy through it.
Yeah, I mean, even if it is that, I think that's great. Like it has like a sort of example energy that you just like your body like sees it. It's like getting like if you get poked a lot or something, like your body will start responding to that poke and it'll like be tense or whatever. But like with a rock, it'll just be like a certain energy, like it's constantly broadcasting at you, and then your own energetic field will adapt to that over time. That's one way of looking at it, I think.
You had me until you said broadcasting, because that still makes it seem like the rock, this crystal, is creating energy as opposed to just receiving and then almost translating or receiving and redirecting. And that's as far as I can go with like the crystal beliefs right now.
Okay. Yeah.
And at the same time, the kind of magic I believe in is like I'll make a lake, I'll personify a lake, or I'll I'll think about a tree in the way I'll think about like a person.
So why not do that with rocks?
I don't know. For some reason, because like trees grow, water moves. I don't know. That could be the fallacy in my thinking, like a blind spot.
Yeah, I mean, earth elementals, they're a lot slower, right? Gnomes, dirt. Well, you don't see the dirt move, but
the earth feels alive, and I've felt into that, but it's, I don't know, man, it sounds like there's some holes in my logic. That might mean I need to throw out the personification of elements, not include crystals into the ones I already believe in. It's just all hard to like grasp and cope with like the existence that we've been given. So there has to be ways to like figure out how to communicate with myself and like the environment self complex.
Yeah, I think to some degree you just kind of have to start putting some faith in it. Either that, or you would have to have like a lot of experience with purifying yourself through qigong and spiritual practices until you start talking to spirits, or like a heavy psychedelic experience could put you in contact with that if you have that intention too. Those are the methods I would think. But like I I mean, I'd say I was kind of skeptical of magical stuff until I experienced it like all at once, and then I was like, okay, like this is definitely real. Like, yeah.
What was the experience? You remember like that first experience that changed your mind?
Well, I'm gonna go with quickly mentioning two different experiences because there was one that kind of kept me. Well, there's a few things that kept me just like believing in God and stuff in general, and one of them was that I was at a friend's house and he was shooting fireworks, and then one of them, like I was just standing there watching it, and for some reason I had the impulse to just step to my left and turn my head to the left as fireworks shot right where I was standing, right before I did that, and I just didn't think about it, and I was not moving before that at all, so that's like, a little bit of a supernatural seeming thing. Anyway, so later, what had me start believing in stuff is I was doing these meditations, pretty much with interacting with people on a soul level, and this girl told me, like, dude, like, fuck off, like, you're doing this thing, and I was like, holy shit, and then suddenly out-of-body experience, and then I started feeling energy.
Okay, what was the second, what was the context? You were where?
Yeah, so I was at this place, yoga retreat center, Stonehouse. Yeah, and so I was living there with people, and then there was this one girl, Amy, that I was attracted to, and I did these meditations that pretty much you interact with people on a soul level, and so I wanted too much, and I wasn't really aware of how to. I feel like I wasn't fully aware of what I was doing and only like partly believing in it. But then at some point she's like, hey, like you're doing this thing. Like, are you like meditating to like mess with my energy? And I was like, fuck, like I am doing that. And then like her saying that, and then like me thinking of myself as different, like that just made me like not identify with myself as much. And I just had an out of body experience. And then after that I was feeling energy more.
Wow. So that is like, that makes me think like we framed it with talking about magic, but magic just seems to be like explaining natural phenomena, like explaining nature.
Yeah.
I think the unknown of it, yeah.
Yeah, I would just say that magic is physics, but on a level that we're not used to, so metaphysics maybe.
Okay. Yeah, because there is an extra like there is a perception that seems non-cognitive, but like to pick it apart a little bit, it's like the firework thing is like you could have seen someone lighting a firework, maybe not registered it consciously, but the self-preservation in you moved your body, like your subconscious was just moving you.
Possibly, but the thing for me with that, like, it was a whole box, so it was just shooting up one at a time, and it was not like the first one, it wasn't like the second, it wasn't the third one, and then just all of a sudden, I just had the impulse to move, and then it shot past me, like, after I moved. It wasn't like me dodging it, it was me moving ahead of time.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to think of one of those crazy experiences that happened to me, but the only one that comes up feels like really explicable logically. There's this guy in college, and he was kind of a messy drunk, and you see people a bunch of times, and one of the times I saw him, and he was so drunk that he came up and like slapped his hand on my face. I got really mad at him, but I couldn't do anything because he was too drunk, and like it would have looked, it would look stupid. So the next time I saw him, or maybe the third time I saw him, he had like that twinkle in his eye, that he looked like he was the kind of drunk that would slap me. So he like raised his hand, and I caught his hand, and it like sobered him up. But that seemed more just like being prepared and learning the lesson from before. That wasn't as like mystical or metaphysical as, yeah, just timing like things with fire. It happens a lot. Things with the elements, like the wind chimes hitting at just a moment of like clarity or song, the sun parting the clouds at the right moment. But these things happen quite a bit. Yeah, but man, it's out there, and it's hard to explain. But maybe we'll get to be able to explain it like 100, 200 years, and then we'll have new magic. You think there's an end to like the understanding of nature, like a theory of everything that will be like that can be culminated?
To some degree, but I think it's ever shifting. I think the nature of it is that as we observe it, we affect it, and so things just keep shifting because we're all like co-creating this. So I think that that would only be the case if things stopped in that way somehow, and we return to some other thing. And then that would be an inexplainable thing again, probably. So, yeah.
So no. So yeah, no.
Both maybe,
right?
To some degree.
It's always the paradox. It seems to be true. I wonder if the next like consciousness, if there's one, will be less paradoxical, or is it going to get more complex?
Oh God!
Is it ever increasing complexity?
Probably.
And then you'll be like, yeah, through the complexity is the simplicity, and it's the paradox that's true. And then we'll keep doing these things over and over until
something. Yeah, it's really hard to describe, but you know, there's from the Tao Te Ching, it's the first line. I forget the first line, but the second line is the name that can be named is not the eternal name, and the first one is like the Tao that can be taught is not the eternal Tao or something.
Yeah, it's like the finger pointing at the moon, as opposed to the moon itself.
Yeah, it's like a set of rules. Like you can calculate how many times you'll get a dice roll, but if you roll it 100 times, it's not going to turn out to be exactly right.
But if you do it 1,000 times, it should get closer to the Gaussian curve. I guess there's a maybe in there.
Yeah, I think that's just another like set of rules that we can manipulate by.
No, as sample size goes up, like that's fucking with the scientific method. As n goes up, like it should normalize. That is a like part of nature.
Okay. Yeah.
But I guess the question might always change, or maybe there's another way it can change that. Because there is some like things we can all agree on and prove with certainty and measure repeatedly, no matter where. Like, there's something to the scientific method.
Oh, absolutely.
Is there any holes in it?
Probably.
But you can't think of any?
I mean, I don't know enough about it, really, but it's...
Shall we dive in? You know all about it. Everyone knows about it. It's like, you'd use it all the time.
I feel like that gets into wondering whether physics in general is right and Einsteinian physics, whether that's like the real thing or whether it's something closer to maybe say what Tesla was working with or something. I don't even know.
Do those contradict each other?
I believe that I've got a friend that says that Einsteinian physics is not accurate.
What I've heard is Newtonian physics doesn't explain quantum physics, and
right.
there's nothing that unifies the super small with the 3D gross reality that we live in. Gross being dense, not
right.
Disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard both, I guess, I think.
So we basically don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah, which is why I said I probably wouldn't really talk that much, because I'm not nearly an expert in the field. Just I know that things are. I mean, we know that we don't know. That's about it at this point.
Yeah, we should talk a little bit about Chinese medicine before concluding. But is there any fundamentals of Chinese medicine that would be helpful? I know, like maybe qi. You can talk about qi and breath. I don't know. What's the foundations? I feel like what everyone needs to know is sleep, drink water, and breathe both deep and shallow. Like,
why shallow?
Because I want to talk about this. There's a big deep breathing movement, and there is a place for deep breathing, but also there's a time for gentle, subtle, unforced, just unmanipulated, untouched breathing that is allowed to be shallow and is not harmful. It's just as positive as the deep breathing can be.
Yeah, I would say that natural breathing definitely has its place, and I think deep breathing or intentional deep breathing is something just to do to open yourself up until your body starts doing what it was once you were a baby. Like I think deep breathing is mostly for unlearning these patterns that we've come up with over time. Shallow breathing kind of stuff. As for general principles with Chinese medicine, I would just say keep your stomach warm, eat warm foods. That's like one basic thing, super basic. But there's a lot of different theories. Like some theories would center the digestion as like the key element to health, and other ones will focus on different things, the different schools of thought. So what I would say is just you want to keep your stomach warm, and in general you would want to stay out of the cold, but some people can't. I mean, you can do it. It's just like
it's very controversial what you're saying. There's a whole Wim Hof movement.
Right, yeah, and some people think that can burn your chi, so it's like, I guess it depends on how strong you are really and how much you're working. But definitely keeping your insides warm is a good thing. And then you want to kind of stay out of wind too. People say that's what gives you a cold. Like it's like, especially if you get wind on your neck. Yeah.
That sounds like superstition. Wind on my neck?
Why don't you go outside on a breezy day and leave your neck unprotected and see if you get a cold in the next couple of days?
I feel like I wouldn't.
I tried it.
I have. There's no way I haven't felt wind on my neck for a sustained period of time.
And you haven't gotten a sniffle or something?
I've gotten colds though in the past too, so you might be onto something.
I mean, that's definitely one thing that they work with, and then whether or not it's true, I mean, everything that comes after it seems to hold true, so I don't see why the initial premise would be false. But I do take things on faith just because they worked in the past, and I don't see a reason to change them at some points. I think it also depends on how strong you are initially, though, and I think everyone goes through different cycles of strengths in their body and their mind. Like sometimes your mind will be on the high and your body will be on the low, and that kind of stuff, which I meant to mention earlier, how you were talking about today your mind isn't as much, but that's like, there's the thing called biorhythms where there's that idea that you'll have different rhythms for your physical body, your mental, your emotional, and and spiritual, and they'll all be up and down at different times.
And when they sync, that's a good day?
Presumably. It has the potential, yeah.
Well, everyone sync your vibes, your 4 vibes as much as possible. And check out Tai Chi, Qigong. Breathe deep, sometimes shallow. Get good sleep and drink water. Eat warm foods, keep your belly warm.
Sounds good.
Yeah, final words?
Nah.
Thanks for tuning into the show, guys. I hope you have a wonderful day. Until next time.